Alrighty, we're back in Arborist, and with this video, we're going to talk about a little bit more of an advanced feature, and we're going to talk about mesh terrains. And we've talked about inner terrain, outer terrain, and that's kind of what things plant on. But we're going to actually turn a mesh into a terrain where we can plant on it. So most of the time, if you're going to do this, it's going to be a lake. You technically could do it with any terrain, but there's really not a lot of use for it on a lot of other terrain. So we're going to look at this lake today, and I want to show one thing before we get into it. When we talk about quick plant is a little bit different. Quick plant will plant on the first terrain that it hits. So right now, this water is basically invisible to quick plant. So if I quick plant an item, it plants all the way on the bottom of the lake. Now I'll go over this when we get to another point here in a little bit, but you can see currently, if I plant the quick plant item, it goes all the way to the bottom of the lake. So something to remember. We'll come back to that in a little bit. So we're going to go to create a mesh terrain. We're going to go to our terrain dropdown right here. And this is where your Unity terrains will show up. We're going to create a mesh terrain. So we're going to hit our little plus button. And that brings us into the mesh terrain edit section. Then we're going to hit the little plus button again. And once we click our mesh, are you sure? You can see how it highlights the whole thing. Are you sure you want to make a mesh terrain? We're going to say yes. All right. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So a mesh terrain, you really want to use your terrain source IDs. And I already know, I didn't really harp on it, but I'll show you in a second. I know my inner terrain in this file is terrain source D1. You can have your inner and your outer both the same because it's going to plant on the first one it hits. I mean, if you wanted to plant something separately, you would change those terrain sources. And we're going to talk about that in this video for sure. So on the mesh terrain, I want to make this a different terrain source. So I'm going to make this one ID, terrain source ID 2. All right. And that's it. So we close this out. And now you can see I've got my terrain inner, terrain source ID 1, and we've created this mesh terrain, which I didn't name it. You can name it if you're wanting to keep them straight, if you've got a lot. But this one is going to be terrain source ID 2. Really important, okay? All right, now, how do we plant on it? So now, if we use a quick plant item, again, quick plant, it now, when I go to plant, it's going to plant on the water, all right? Because that's the first terrain it hits. So if you go back and plant something, you would just need to hit your little control, that if you wanted to drop it down, you drop it down. And that's the thing with quick plant items. You can adjust them so individually, it's not really a big deal. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about biome mask because this is an advanced thing. So we're going to act like we had an area where we wanted trees to plant on the bottom of the lake, but we had some grasses that we wanted to plant on top of the water. So let's, I'm going to try to save a little time here. We're going to, instead of creating one totally, let's just duplicate one. And I can't remember, this may be in an advanced feature that I cover later in this section, but you can now, if I haven't talked about it, you can now duplicate biomes. Which comes in very handy. So we're just going to duplicate this one down here. I'm going to change this. Let's just call it forest. That's not being used, I don't think. And that's good. All right, let's go to edit. And let's see what all's in here. Let's get rid of that. We don't really need that. We don't really need that. That'll give us 3 items. I know this item plants below the terrain a little bit. It's a filler, so it won't. It'll look like it's not on either terrain. We're going to make it reference the water terrain, but when we go look at it, you'll notice it's not. It's not actually touching the bottom of the lake. It's going to be planted in the water, but it's going to be below the water line. And then we're going to add something that we can make just on top. Let's just say, I don't know why we would, but we'll put these flowers in here. Add plant and close. All right, so this is where we have to, and I, I would suggest if you are going to use a mesh terrain to have a separate biome for that mesh terrain because it gets a little tricky, like I said, and you don't have to do this, but it would definitely save you some headache. So all of these things are going to be stuff we've already talked about. I'm not going to go through all of those. The one we're going to talk about is terrain source rules. So when I pull that up, I can use a terrain source to tell this where to plant. So this is the flower. We want to include it on ID2. That's the water plane. We want to exclude it from ID1. We don't want it planting on the bottom. Same with this one. We're going to include on ID2. We're going to exclude on ID1. Let's put this tree on the water. We'll do one tree on the water, one tree on the bottom. That way it'll be something we can kind of look at better. So we want this one to plant on the water. So let's include it on ID2, exclude it on ID1. And then this tree, let's put it on the bottom of the lake. So we want this one to include on ID1, which is the bottom of the lake, and we want to exclude ID2. All right, so we've got our biome set up. So now we need to go to our little drop down and let's create a biome mask. And let's see if this planted like we want it to. We're going to go new. And I'm doing this real time, so hopefully this works. This was our main tree. Let's look and see what we got. All right, so we got our big tree planted on the bottom of the water. Yep. We've got our little shrub that I had planting down into the terrain. So its reference is the water plane. You can see how it's not on the bottom of the lake. All right, and then I don't see. Oh, there's one right there. Okay, there's a tree there, and that's the one that we wanted planting on the water plane itself. Remember, you would not do this, but we did it just for demonstration. And you can see it is up on the water plane. That's this tree. So we've got it planting on the water plane. Don't see my flowers. Where are they? Let's go. Oh, there they are. I didn't change the color. So there's the little flower, and you can see it is right on top of the water plane. So that is the one that we did not alter the height, so it's planting on top of the water plane like it should. All right, so that is mesh terrains. You can create a lot of really cool stuff with them. It's definitely not something you're going to use a lot, but I did want to cover it and give you kind of the main thing you would use this for is planting stuff, grasses on top of the water. I mean, that's the main thing you're going to do. And it's cool if you've got an area where you're wanting that grass to be, looks like it's in the water, but not all the way in the water. You can do like I did with these. You can sink them down a little bit. And so visually, they don't look like they're just floating on top of the water. But at the same time, you can make your tree plant all the way on the base. So it's just a cool little trick, and I thought I would bring it in and put it in the video series.